2025 is the year of Wicked, and I'll be spending it talking about my favorite book and its adaptations from stage to screen. Moreover, its status as an adaptation. We'll be doing a deep dive and analysis of each book, other Wicked-related media, such as the movies and the musical, and, of course, the source material, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. If you're interested in following me on this journey, please like and subscribe so you know when a new video drops. Let's get this out of the way. I'm a little hater. Stephen Schwartz lives in my head rent-free, and I'm not afraid to admit it. This video series is coming from the point of view of someone who read Wicked in high school nearly 2 decades ago and several other times throughout his life, and has a big damn problem with how Wicked was ultimately adapted onto Broadway. That being said, I can't help but enjoy both the musical and the movie. I think the musical was performed beautifully. Idina Menzel's raw, belting performance and Kristen Chenoweth's operatic stylings work surprisingly well together. These roles were written for these two women, and it shows. I also adore that even though Schwartz did his best to suck all of the gay out of the musical, Menzel and Chenoweth did their best to inject a certain kind of sapphic energy back into the story, a torch happily carried out by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo. There is a certain delightful, whimsical aesthetic that was established in the play and polished to perfection in the film, but I would expect nothing less than perfect from Jon Chu and Universal in that regard. Which brings me to my next point.
Popular. You're gonna be
Okay, so normally when something gets changed into a show or a book, I'm in the camp of, well, the original work is still there for us all to enjoy. And while this is technically the case, it's impossible to deny how much the big Hollywood adaptation has taken over. A trend that has been exemplified by Disney, but other studios are definitely catching on. There are YouTubers making video essays and TikToks calling the original books dark and disturbing, even disgusting compared to the adaptation. The banner for the ebook and audiobooks in many bookstores has been replaced with movie promotion. Searching the book on Amazon or bookstores like Chapters and Indigo, or Barnes & Nobles if you're in the States, shows you movie merch first. This is not merely a new adaptation. The identity and vision Gregory Maguire had for his work is being eclipsed by the green and pink aesthetics and branding of Universal. And this is not an exception to the rule. One big example is that for the series I'm making, I wanted to reread Wicked. This is a book I originally experienced through a library loan, and while I had a copy I owned a few years ago, I think I might have misplaced it during like a move or a breakup or something. So I wanted to buy the original printing, like I read when I was in high school. It's a beautiful book, and even the cover tells a story. We see only the framed portrait of the supposed Wicked Witch, enigmatic and mysterious, through a round hole in the book's cover. When we open it up, without that framing, we find a woman with baby animals carefully clutched and cradled in her arms, revealing Elphaba's true nature as a person that was filled with empathy for those less fortunate than her, even if she herself led a difficult, troubled life. There are other beautiful ink illustrations throughout the book, but when I went on a hunt for it, it was nowhere to be found. Seemingly, the original printing, or even reprintings, are just gone, replaced by books with musical and movie-themed covers, even though the theme, story, and characters are intact within the body of the story. Aesthetically, they've been softened and altered. Nowhere else is there a better example of this than the tagline for the Audible book, "Everyone deserves the chance to fly." A line from the musical first said by the wizard and then is reclaimed by Elphaba. This line is also the tagline of the movie. This line is never uttered in the book. Moreover, it is not part of the book's themes or storyline. Elphaba is not a scared, bullied teenager, nor is Wicked a coming-of-age story. Elphaba is a self-actualized, passionate, and political young woman with friends who care about her and value her beliefs, who gets beaten down and vilified by a dictator in his cult of personality. Elphaba always believed in herself. Glinda's relationship with her is not one of enemies to friends nor a love triangle, but instead that of a sheltered yet academically ambitious woman having her eyes open to a queer, rebellious side of the world that she never knew through her friendship and love of one Elphaba Throp. Beyond that, because this is now a Hollywood adaptation, it now makes Wicked, and by extension, The Wizard of Oz, a franchise closely linked to the Hollywood machine. They've pissed all over it to mark their territory, and now anyone else making an adaptation of the Wicked series, or even the original Oz books, which were in the public domain, will be compared to Universal's Wicked. But this was also the case of the old MGM movie. Even Wicked as a book takes inspirations largely from the movie as well as the original books. I really couldn't be happier that my favorite book is finally getting a film adaptation. I've wanted it since I was a teenager. Wicked did something very important for me when I was a teen with its brave, unwavering politics, emotional story, and enigmatic but still empathetic characters. Notably, for the 90s, which was 10 years before I read it, its representation was unparalleled, and to this day, I've never really read a book like it. Elphaba is the first bisexual main character that I ever encountered, and the only intersex main character I've ever seen in any book or film. I was very excited for this movie, and to see what they would do with a lot more of the more transgressive aspects that were downplayed and even erased in the film. I guess I got my hopes up a little when I heard the filmmakers wanted to include more things from the books. I was ultimately very disappointed. There's a cost to adapting a beloved story, and things always get lost in translation. Once you cross that bridge of a huge media giant like Universal adapting a transgressive, edgy story into yet another safe, run-of-the-mill fairy tale, you can't uncross it. It's untouchable to anyone else that could be interested in making another adaptation. I worry now that any adaptation of the Frank L. Baum books will be compared and contrasted with Wicked even more than they were before. The gaping maw of Hollywood has opened up and is swallowing one of the most interesting and subversive pieces of fantasy I've ever read, digesting it for the masses to make it safer and more comfortable. Is the musical and movie more accessible? Sure, I suppose so. However, it's at the cost of the book's very identity. The interesting thing is that Universal isn't the first company to covet the seductive allure of the Wicked story. Disney clearly had a desire to take on The Wizard of Oz as a project in the past, as noted by Oz the Great and Powerful in 2013 and Return to Oz in 1985, as well as other works in the mid-century in partnership with MGM, such as their album The Story and Songs of the Wizard of Oz. Moreover, Disney especially has also recognized the appeal of villains and their rehabilitation. Maleficent and Frozen take obvious inspiration from Wicked, both visually and in terms of their story, and even, in Frozen's case, their sound. And I wouldn't be the first one to compare Idina Menzel's performance of Defying Gravity with her later performance of Let It Go. They're basically the same song, sung by the same person, and Elphaba and Elsa are essentially the same character in terms of the musical. Going back to Oz the Great and the Powerful, it could be argued that it's a retelling of a very Wicked-like story where a sweet young woman is tainted by her hatred of the wizard into becoming the Wicked Witch. With The Wizard of Oz being the public domain, nothing is really stopping anyone from adapting The Wizard of Oz however they like, and there have been some rather fascinating entries other than the Wicked series, but I'll save that for another video. I don't think adapting a work and having a different take on the source material is a bad thing. I really don't. Wicked itself is an adaptation of one of my favorite pieces of fiction, with a much different interpretation of the characters and expansion of the world. What I do resent is that it's being fed into the meat grinder that is Hollywood. And it's not the first time that this has happened either, and it's unfortunately a very common occurrence. The MCU and Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings are highly influential adaptations with their own fan bases that have, in many ways, overtaken the source material, and because of those adaptations, the stories themselves have forever been changed in the eyes of the public. Just like Wicked, the visuals and the style of the Hollywood adaptations have in many ways even seeped into how the original material is now presented. Just like the MCU and Lord of the Rings, it feels like we can't even have a conversation about Wicked without the Hollywood adaptation breathing down our necks. Now, I could go quietly into the night and just accept all of this, but I refuse to relent this story to the book talk girlies that got spooked when they opened Wicked and happened across a raw, subversive, and dark sex scene or some politics that were a little uncomfortable and inconvenient. So here I am, still in the infancy of my YouTube career, committing to a project that's going to last all year. I'll definitely be making other videos along with it and working on other projects and doing my usual streams, but if you're as excited for this project as I am, please hit the subscribe button. Next month we will be doing a deep dive into the very first book, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, and in March I'll be doing a breakdown of the movie. I have a Wicked themed video planned for every month this year, so tune in next time. If you're a fan of Wicked, whether it be the movie, the musical, or the books, let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like the video while you're down there. It really helps out my channel. If you would like to support the work I do, consider joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or becoming a YouTube member. One-time donations can also be made via Ko-Fi. Link is in the description down below. That's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.